Please. आया फिर?
आ गया.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. Welcome to the Yatri story, chapter 7, Health and Well-Being. Thank you so much for joining us. To give you a little brief background about what the Yatri story is, it is a voluntary initiative by the JY alumni of Delhi NCR. And every month there is a session where 5 to 6 panelists join in. We get to know about the professional journey and we discover topics such as this one. To start with a brief introduction of all the speakers, maybe we can start with Prashant. Prashant, would you like to tell us a little bit about your journey and why or how you became associated with the healthcare space?
Right. So, I come from a background, a normal background where engineering and MBA was the uh, thing which we all do, and I was pursuing that. And somewhere, I realized that I want to get into the education space, and I joined Teach for India. So for 2 years, I was a teacher in a government school, and over there, I saw a lot of issues which happens on the ground. So after these 2 years, I joined a startup in a social space called Stir Education. And Stir believed in growth mindset. So it was a completely different model, which said that education for our teachers should not be proclaimed that we all know, but we should actually approach the teachers from the way that they know the answers. We just need to help them, guide them in that particular direction. I really love that approach. And that was the first time I got introduced to this whole concept around well-being, that the growth mindset and other aspects. And I saw the differences happening on the ground. And, in our business schools, we all read about the Maslow's need of hierarchy. And when I read about that, I was completely disoriented with this particular model, but I said, let's do it because this particular intelligent person is saying me that it will succeed. But when I saw the results, I was completely hooked to this particular well-being space. And Pallavi, I had been doing something or the other in the space of well-being, not on the label of well-being, but like running, cycling. That's few of my passions which I pursue. And 3 years back, there's this company called Round Glass Wellbeing, which was looking for someone to head their Delhi NCR operations for this school wellbeing curriculum. So I got really fascinated that something is happening in the school vertical, and because it was schools, my passion is towards education and the well-being sector. I thought this is a great combination for me to jump in, and yes, that's how I got introduced. And I've been working in this space from the last 3 years on a particularly well-being. But the journey of well-being, I personally believe, for everyone has been happening throughout their life. They just don't label it as a well-being bit. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to our conversations with all these lovely people in from the well-being spaces and all the participants. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prashant. So I really liked how you said that all of us are associated with this sector, but we don't just put a label on it. Going ahead, let's have an introduction from Mr. Himanshu Joshi. So we'd love to know about the life.
Yeah, I'm audible, right?
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah, correct. So as the previous gentleman mentioned, right, I'm also typical engineer come MBA product. I did my MBA from XLRI Jamshedpur long back in 2011. Joined Accenture Strategy as an analyst and moved up the hierarchy to become a director there. Quit Accenture in 2020 of August. I think I had 3 years of 2013 to 16. I think 12 to 15, somewhere around there, where I was working very closely with the government space. We were doing projects in health, we were doing projects in education. So doing those 3 years, and to be fair, I worked with almost 8-9 state governments. There was a marquee project, which was almost $100 billion project, Delhi Mumbai Industrial Corridor, which we see the fruits now. I was one of the parts who were working on the skilling space. From there was definitely a tinge of, and exactly at that point of time, Jagrati Yatra happened in 2013 when I was a facilitator, and I got really inspired by the entire energy of people around me, right from, let's say, age groups of 18-20 to almost like 30-35, that a lot of people are actually doing a lot of good stuff. And why do I not do something around that? But I think destiny had a big role to play in the entire scheme of things. And 2020, when the pandemic was almost at its peak, sometime in June, that is when I and a couple of people were from Accenture decided that let's start something in the health and wellness space. And to be fair, we really did a market like all consultants do. We really scanned the market to understand what exactly are the key aspects in the health and wellness space. And one key aspect which we realized was that a lot of the space is one fragmented. Second, a lot of people don't really talk about the outcomes, right? We'll have a yoga session, but not about the outcome. We go to a doctor to cure something, but the doctor is hardly bothered about whether you actually are cured or not cured till the time you again get back to his clinic again. So we thought, can we put together an ecosystem where the focus is more on the outcome and not on, let's say, making money out of it. So it has some bits of social angle and some bits of genuine pressing need, and that's how the journey is. It's been almost 6 months. We have started the corporate onboarding. We have also started doing some bits of things around retail. We've got few yoga studios onboarded. We've got into medicine, insurance. So kind of diversified into multiple aspects. One corporate wanted purely mental well-being, and we got a couple of corporates in panel through our vendors. So we started searching for vendors. So that's where my journey is, and look forward to kind of having more learning. I would say I'm still newbie in this wellness space, right? I still have the mind of a consultant, right? I break every problem into a 2x2 matrix and see where the issue lies, what can we do. But look forward to the conversation in the next couple of hours.
Right. Thank you, Manshu. So I think that the fact that all of us are from different backgrounds and, it's a very diverse panel, even though we all are working in the same sector, we all have different aspects or different experiences that bring something to it and actually make a difference to the ecosystem that you were talking about, how community plays a role in healthcare.
Yes.
So would love to know more about that later in the session. But
Sure.
moving ahead with Rashmi, so we would love to know a little bit about your journey.
Hi, so my name is Rashmi Sharma. I am Jagriti Yatri 2019. And academically speaking, I had done my BTech IT and then I moved to join TCS, worked there as a Java developer. And since I was passionate about joining a media profile, I wanted to be a radio jockey or a video jockey. I moved to a television channel for hosting, and that is how was my first step towards doing something in media. Later on, since I thought that I have, achieved something what I always wanted to do, I realized that, something in life is not actually happening and I'm not hitting the spot. And there was a time when I was at my lowest, and I was not able to find the purpose of my life. And I think that happens typically in most of the people's life, after they hit 25 or somewhere around that. So that was the condition with me, because I had been cribbing about, what I really want to do and how far I am from what I really want to do. And then I eventually became that person, started doing that thing, but still wasn't happy. And that is where I thought of quitting everything and losing control, trying to have control over things. And that is how I moved towards yoga. And since then I took mental well-being seriously more than my physical well-being. Yes, physical also was part of it, but I wanted to make sure that I'm mentally okay, after everything is happening. So that is how I entered into yoga. I took it seriously, but I was very sure that I'm not just doing it at a student level. I want to, also help people. I have to learn it in such a way that it is going to, help me mentally, emotionally, psychologically, physically. But at the same time, um, I should have spent enough time to be a teacher, to be a tutor, and spread it whatever I have learned. So that is what I would be talking about in these 10-15 minutes, whatever time is given to me. So that is pretty much about me. And since then, since 2019, I have been doing it regularly. I have been promoting it regularly, and I am still in this space, so I haven't moved out. So that is the reason why I'm here. And that's it. That's pretty much about me. Thank you.
So I'd actually love to hear more about your personal journey, because after the call that we had, I did realize that there is so much. In fact, so many of our panelists do come from a place of, having shared something in their personal lives that made them get into this field. So, but right now, let's just do like quick 1 minute introduction. So, Dr. Sabine, you can go next.
So, as the name suggests, I am a doctor, an MBBS doctor, a gynecologist actually, to be precise. So, yeah, I come from an era, I think some of you might agree, where, if you get good marks, it's either medicine or engineering. And that kind of paved my journey towards medicine to begin with. Post med school, slowly I started understanding healthcare systems and my interest in health systems. So I think that is where slowly my focus happened into healthcare. If you talk about wellness, I think that came way after. It came later on, I think somewhere around when I hit my 30s, when I started feeling the need for more a mental wellness approach to my work. But I think post that, I have before that, and even right now, I think my approach to health has always been clinical and system based, because both from the place of my education as well as how I overlaid it across the years with work in in healthcare systems, be it in working with healthcare hospitals or working with larger systems like Ayushman Bharat or Obamacare. And I think what I realized was that there's so much more to health than just going to a doctor and talking about it, or rather going to a doctor and expecting results. There are the system of healthcare, from health finance to health data, is so much more nuanced and needs so much more understanding. So I think that is an angle that I would love to explore in this talk.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Sabine. And yes, that is an angle that we would like to discuss as well. But moving on with the introductions, Mukat, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone. This side Mukat Jain. Just like many other panelists, I'm also a mechanical engineer by qualification, and currently I am into automobile consultancy, doing it for past 2 years. Prior to that, I had a corporate experience working with Maruti Suzuki for approximately 8 years, and currently talking about today's agenda of health and lifestyle. How I am associated with this is I'm doing blogging about yoga niche as a whole since last 1 year, and on the website, on my personal website, it's yogtree.com. So how I become associated with yoga was basically a result of pandemic only. So it was somewhere in April 2020 when COVID was just like lockdown and all was just happening, and my consultancy business got completely shattered. So I was having enough of time to look upon various life aspects. So yoga was my passion since very childhood years, and I was doing it since very long time. And writing was my another passion, which I want to pursue it for long, but couldn't do it due to like job and corporate and various other aspects. So this was maybe the best time to start this. So it has been approximately an year I have been doing it, and till date I have written more than 60 posts amounting to approximately 1 lakh words. So that's it. Maybe looking forward for having a good conversation with all.
Okay, thank you so much, Mukat. Last but not the least, we have Vivek, who has a very catchy slogan, Yoga Se Hoga, which we would love to hear more about. So, Vivek, if you could just introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi everyone. So my name is Vivek, and I belong from a very small town called Pichur in MP, and graduated from a pharma college, and then completed my master's from the National Institute of Pharmaceutical Education and Research, which is the top institute for pharma research. And at that time, I went for the Jagrati Yatra, and during my journey, I realized that there are people with a lot of interest, and there are people have changed their career trajectory, right? So I can also do that because I wasn't very interested in pharma or allopathy. So I was confused, but sure that I don't want to do this. So after coming back from the Yatra, completed my master's, and then I joined Shashank and Ashutosh as the first employee of Jagrati Enterprise Network. So lived in Mumbai and Devariya for 2 years, and then worked with some of the RCs like Prashant during the Jagrati Yatra as well. Post that, I went for the Young India Fellowship program, and there I realized that I really want to work in the preventive healthcare and area and the education. So post that, I joined Ashoka University, and since then I've been associated with Ashoka and upcoming Plaksha University. So at Plaksha, we are trying to build a new age tech university. Apart from that, I teach yoga part time. Yeah, so that's all so far.
Okay, thank you so much, Vivek. I'll be moderating the session for today. My name's Pallavi. The objective for today's session is mostly to learn about the professional journeys of these yatris and understand, their perspective on holistic health and well-being. So to begin with, let's go back a little bit to Rashmi's introduction. So, like you mentioned, Rashmi, you had a personal experience which helped you or motivated you to step into this field. I would love to hear from you, from Prashant, and from Mukat that at an individual level, what does health and well-being mean to you? Since you weren't always, you weren't from core healthcare, but it is a field that you transitioned into. So, what does it mean to you?
So as I said that I was professionally too much inclined towards meeting my dreams, and when God was there to say tathastu to all my dreams, there was still something missing, right? So the things were not happening properly because I was very new to the industry of media. So many of those who like to chase. Okay, so many of those who would like to, they chase their dreams and they eventually fall into that particular space, would know that how much of happiness and contentment it brings to their lives. So I was fortunate enough in that way, but there was a kind of glitch that actually I was asking myself this question, like uh, that what else do I need in life, and I am not that sort of a person who would just do for the sake of doing things, until unless I do not have a passion, I do not have a craving for that particular thing, I do not do. I'm that sort of a person. So once the craving was stopped, or maybe I was not able to realize like what do I need to do in my life, what I am actually craving for, was something that was bothering me like anything. And I had always been, since we are Indians, we have a kind of a spiritual and religious background as compared to the rest of the world. So we were one way or the other related to yoga, and we were hearing about it. That it doesn't just work at the physical level; it also works at the mental level, and there are so many things that it can do. But just like any other Indian citizen who is not in that particular space would take it, but at that point of time when, when I was looking for answers, I was looking for purpose, I was looking for something that would just mend my ambiguity that was there in my head. I actually, as I said, I felt the need that I need to lose control of life. I need to lose the need that I should be the one who can control my life and who should be doing
Right.
it. And there are times when you actually have to let go everything. So that was the point in time when I was not associated with anything, any goal, any place, any people, any person, any relationship, or anything in life. And that is the reason why I think my level of acceptance was 100%. You know, from a person who wanted one particular thing and would put everything into achieving that one particular thing, to just letting life happen. I think that was the time that I had never had let myself to be in that particular space. So uh, if you talk about what happened, I would say that, organization, in terms of my organization, I wasn't happy, even though I was doing the kind of job, but it's not just the job that was making me happy. There was a lot of organizational things, or maybe the politics, or maybe the negative environment, or maybe I was not able to tackle the way the typical IT profession and the media profession go. I was not able to comprehend what like how this sophisticated environment of IT is, not there anymore, and people were showing true faces, or maybe I was able to see the other side of the world. So it was a lot of things at a personal space, at a professional space, at a relationship space, at an emotional space. I think it was me looking for answers and not able to find it anywhere. And I think that was the best thing that could happen, because that was the level of freedom that, that I was just speaking about. So, and that is how I was like, yeah, let's just surrender and, just devote myself to yoga. So that was, so there used to be thing when I used to just do yoga. I mean, if you ask me what have you done for 1 month, I was like, I have just done yoga. Yeah, so I think that used to be that particular time, exactly 2 years ago, 2019 March. And yeah, so I think I have answered your question.
Yes, you have. Um, so I think, when you look at somebody looks at your profile, they can really see that you did manage to surrender yourself and it worked out for the best. Like you said, there were so many things that you wanted to do, and that's very evident if one looks at your profile. So Prashant, I saw that you were smiling while Rashmi was answering. I was wondering if you wanted to add something.
No, I was just hearing her story about the whole surrender part, and I was thinking I never had to surrender completely, and uh, I think for me, because now I'm speaking now, let me. So for me, the well-being never came as a well-being to me, but it came as a good habits. Those Panchtantra ki kahaniyan, and like early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. Be good to your neighbors. Uh, are those things which I picked up for myself, and I felt it's only the last 5 or 7 years when I was completely started realizing that this is what I'm doing is has a new word called well-being, or as Vivek rightly pointed, preventive healthcare. So I'm making sure that I never need to uh, have to go to doctors or something until there is something very serious, because I'm actually making sure to follow these right practices beforehand. And so that's what I would say. And on an individual level, I think physical is something which is always connected to me, or as Rashmi said, there has been a phase where in my school days I was very introvert. I would eat all the fries. I would have always have had got some money from my parents while they had not given it, but I would have it. And I would have always have good friends all around where we know which are the places to party. But then I realized my education suffered, everything suffered. And when I jumped onto the path of running, a lot of people started appreciating me, that he's someone who wakes up in the morning at 5. I actually made a very good relationship with my vice chancellor, because he was the only one and I was the only one who would see each other every morning. And in the whole college, he would see ki ye kuch hai, karta hai. And uh, so there are a lot of interesting stories which happens if you start following these particular things. So that's what well-being is for me. And I've cycled quite a lot, I've run, and those relationships, being good to the neighbor. And a simple thing which I can share, like every time I speak loudly to someone, or I tell someone that please don't honk, I never say please don't honk. I will always say why, like in an anger mode. At the end of the day, I realize that person might not improve, but I have actually spoiled myself. So those small good habits is what I realized is for me is all about well-being. And that's how I am surrounded by well-being all around. And it's a continuous journey. I think everyone will agree with me, we all are on this path, but still we might not have explored it completely. And while I might say a lot of things today about anger management and a lot of things, yet I have those all impurities in myself also. So that's well-being for me. Like, I'm on a path, I have impurities, but I'm ready to accept that I want to improve those. So that's where I come from, well-being perspective.
So when you say that we're all on a path and it's a continuous process, like, people always say that we're all a work in progress.
Yeah.
And what you said about the vice chancellor thing, so I could really relate to it because I'm an early riser too. And we would, my friend and I, we would hit the gym in the morning, have some of our professors also working out at the same time. So in the clinic, we would just smile at each other and have that sort of, I don't know, it was a sense of familiarity and a, a different connection from the other students, that, oh, I know that you also wake up in the morning and you're disciplined enough to go and work out. So I don't know if it got us any favors, but it was a good feeling
I
to
think that's the whole point. Like, if you do the right things, you actually get the benefits. Like Vivek will tell us, yoga se hoga. So wo hoga wala part is about those good things which you are going to get. That PB, my vice chancellor actually approved my Stanford trip just because he knew me. So a lot of interesting things happens, and I'm looking
Right.
forward to hear this. Vivek, yoga se kaise hoga?
Okay, so we will come to Vivek in a while, but before that, I would like to go to Mukat and know about his personal story because I know he has an interesting one. So yeah, let us know, how did you enter the healthcare space and what motivated you to be?
Yeah, sure. Maybe I'd like to add a point to what Prashant pointed out to the word like preventive health. So basically, we Indians are like this. So we always do it in a reactive mode. We don't act in a proactive stage, whether that is related to health or anything, even in our day-to-day circumstances. So one thing that is important is we need to take care of our health in a proactive manner, not in a reactive manner. So that's a very good point, what Prashant had pointed out. And coming back to my part, so like the same. So health and well-being, it means very important to me. And I can recall one famous book by Doran Hardy, so The Compounding Effect, in which he says that health has a very long-term impacts. By making some certain changes in our day-to-day routine, it can lead to very long-term impacts on our health. So these are basically compounding effects. Suppose, let's say he gave an example, a beautiful example in a book, let's say, suppose if we are drinking 1 cup of a coffee daily, but suppose if we decrease the frequency to let's say twice or once a week, so we are cutting certain calories. Maybe you'll not be able to see the effects in 1 year or 2 years, but slowly after some certain period of time, you'll be able to see the positive impacts on your health. And not just health, so it has impacts on your financial matters, personal relationship. So everything starts from the health part, so that plays a very important role in our day-to-day life. And talking about my journey, how I enter into this space, so my biggest influencer was my wife. So it was somewhere around in 2019. She was suffering from this hypothyroidism. I think for those who don't know, so hypothyroidism is kind of a disorder or a disease in which a person's body undergoes certain hormonal changes. And she's a kind of a person who is like very I'll say anti towards allopathy kind of a treatment, and doesn't want and would like to go in a kind of a conventional treatment whatever ancestors used to do to treat certain kind of diseases. So she started her research on how to cure her thyroid with Ayurveda and yoga. And she did that practice of yoga by performing some various yoga poses such as Simhasan and various other techniques of Ayurveda, taking some early day कुछ नुस्खे होते हैं जो हमारे like ancient अपने parents के होते हैं. So she started adopting that routine, and after 6 months she was completely able to cure it. And that was the moment we both decided to make this yoga and Ayurveda a part of our daily routine, and the same motivated me to work upon that.
Okay, that was interesting. So while you were talking about, allopathy and nuske, I saw Vivek nodding very enthusiastically. So, Vivek, would you like to tell us what made you transition from core allopathy to preventive healthcare?
Yeah, so as I was mentioning in my introduction, so graduated from Naipur Mohali, completed my master's. And during that time and also post that, there were two family members, they were very ill. I couldn't control the situation. I mean, in life, when we try to control a lot of things, most of the thing we try to control, and at times when we find ourselves in situation which are beyond our control, then only we look for the bigger question. I mean, apart from, for example, asking for some small things, right? So at that point of time, I realized that I'm not able to find answers anywhere, because I was in very, I was very upset. I was in pain. Couldn't connect with my friends. Couldn't explain them my situation. Right. So it was a very difficult time for me. And then I started meditating. I mean, I was into yoga and meditation. At that time I realized, okay, there is a tool available which I can use. So I started meditating regularly, and then I saw I was looking for a delete button, right? All of us, what we want is just get rid of our negative impression, right? That's what we want, right? If let's say we have a delete button by which we can clear our head, that's the best thing we can have, and a strong mind can manage everything in this world. So with this thought, I started practicing, and then with my experience with some doctors wasn't very good, and also the side effect of allopathy wasn't very good. Although there are a lot of good doctors, and allopathy plays a very big role in our life. So I similar to as Prashant was saying, I don't want to go there. I don't want to face doctors. So let's focus on preventive healthcare. So that's the reason I shifted from allopathy to preventive healthcare, and to learn the art of leaving, how to leave things, how to answer some of the biggest question. I mean, usually we don't look for in our day-to-day life. So that was the reason. Yeah.
Right, right. So I know that you said that you don't want to face doctors, but we have Dr. Sabine with us on the panel today. So we'll have to.
I also said there are some good doctors. So Dr. Sabine is
Right, right. Just to be on the safer side, you mentioned that. But
I feel so much.
yeah, so Dr. Sabine, you have worked with the government of India. You've worked with Obamacare on Ayushman Bharat, and I always feel like there is a sort of narrative in healthcare that we need to make it more accessible, but there is a very evident glass ceiling. So, have you faced any key challenges with respect to, let's say, infrastructure or doctors? And um, is there a way to go about it? Have you been doing anything through your work which is making healthcare more accessible to the general population?
So, it's a very interesting comparison. Ayushman Bharat was in a way based on Obamacare, which is an insurance-based scheme. And if you think about it, insurance is the aspect of healthcare systems which deal with prevention of diseases rather than curative aspects of it. And if used correctly, primary and preventive healthcare has and working on it from a systemic level actually can increase accessibility of healthcare greatly. Only problem is that our focus has always been on tertiary and curative systems, right? We have tried to build bigger hospitals, better hospitals, but we have not tried to make sure that we have 2 lakh primary healthcare centers, of which only around 400 have active doctors on duty. Right? And these are not my numbers, these are reports given by the Ministry of Health, actually way back in 2019. Right? And so if we even give access to people in those spaces to some of these health services, then probably the idea of prevention, the idea of understanding clinical health can be made more accessible, right? So my work has largely been in trying to convince some of these government agencies to try and work and put resources in those areas, to advocate into resources in primary care, into preventive care, and not just work on bettering tertiary care, which of course is important, with something that all of us already focus upon, in better MRIs, in better diagnostic possibilities. What I feel, of course, yoga and wellness aside, what I feel is really good about clinical care is the diagnostic capabilities. So, but what I feel we do not have is the understanding of how much clinical medicine can be a problem, right? The solution. So, clinical medicine has a really good way of understanding what's going on with your body, of explaining to you what's going on with your body, but it doesn't have a really good way of solving it. Right? We started with drugs which were as simple as penicillin, but today drug-resistant bacteria, MRSA, has been some third biggest, bacterial infective killer in the United States. In India, drug resistance has not even been researched because it's such a huge problem, and OTC drug supply is so easily available that we have almost given up on such problems. So yeah, alternative medicine and medicine in that space definitely helps. But as I was saying, that systemically we need to focus more on primary care, on reaching out to more people, explaining what is health. Now, from a basic understanding, one of the basic problems that we face, and you and I are from the same alma mater, so we have gone through a much better training, I suppose. Okay, just being really biased towards my alma mater at this point, but yeah, we went through a really good training in history taking, which is a basic of how to take history, how to understand what's going on with the patient, how to write it down. Today, a doctor in India spends less than 12 seconds on knowing what's going on with the patient. I think it's a very little time to actually focus on it, right? And yes, doctors are stressed out. Yes, resources are stretched thin, but I still think this is not an excuse. There are still better ways of working on history taking, on working on diagnostic medicine, and not just preventive medicine. So I think that is what I've been working on, and that I think could be a good answer to a lot of problems.
Agreed, agreed. And when you said that, you're being biased towards your alma mater, but I must assure everyone watching this that it is a bias which is valid, because we have seen the conditions in other colleges, other universities, and we were quite grateful, quite fortunate to have studied at a place that teaches us what is the proper thing to do. Uh, Guaranteed that in the real life situation it does not always work out like that. Like Dr. Sabine said, 12 seconds for a case history, it's not enough. But I think the kind of work that Himanshu is doing, the kind of work that Dr. Sabine is doing, maybe we can understand how to use technology and data to make our healthcare systems better. So Himanshu, Dr. Sabine, please go ahead and let us know what you think about this.
So I'll give you some broad statistics, and when we started this live health, right? India's GDP is roughly about roughly about 2.8 to 3 trillion, right? COVID set us back by about 10% of that. See, we spend close to $300 billion on healthcare in India, which is almost like 12% of our annual GDP. Huge, right? No other industry comes as close to this, right? This industry is growing at about 35%, right? What does it indicate? And as Dr. Sabine was talking about, right, in spite of all this, we are still short of a lot of hospitals, we are still short of a lot of doctors, and there's still a lot of infra that is yet to be created, even in some of our bigger cities. I'll probably say the metros are still well off, but even some of our bigger cities, we really don't have as good as infra as the city probably demands, right? The reason being that one, government really did not take healthcare. So we've been spending just 2% of our GDP on healthcare. The government sends just 2%. The remaining is actually coming from the private sector, where it's primarily the owner of the hospital to end up spending on all these aspects. And in fact, to be fair, out of this 250, $300 billion that we're talking about, a majority is actually the pharma industry, which is where we are making the vaccines for exports. and not for internal consumption. Another set of statistics, and these are some very uh, numbers that'll really hit all of us hard, right? If you look at some of these reports, right, or every 30-plus-year-old person in India is actually suffering from one or the other disease, and these are diseases like diabetes, hypertension, respiratory, sleeper disorders, mental wellness, right? That's a big topic these days, right? So when we started this, we realized that there is obviously a need of technology, but I think where more than technology, it's also a human interface, right? We can probably say some bits of an AI is required, some bit of gamification is required. But what is also important is, let's say, these simple things like habit change. I think when we started this conversation, people were talking about how they daily do a small walk in the morning, right? And during the course of this webinar also, right, I used to get messages on the core group at 5:30 in the morning. I'm, to be fair, I'm not a morning person. I'm more of a evening person, right? But those small habits, right, go a long way in what we call as preventive healthcare. But there's absolutely no data showing that, right? We all know that walking 10,000 steps, which is the basic thing that anybody of us can do. Yoga, all this are good, but they take a lot of habit change for us to do. Walking between calls, walking between jobs, walking between, let's say, climbing upstairs, right? 2 years, 3 years ago, I started climbing up 6 floors when I was going to my Accenture office. Now, 6 floors is not easy, but morning once and evening once, that is the amount of calories that you burn, and these are all preventive healthcare. So, what I'm trying to say that technology obviously is important, and it'll lead us to better effects, but it's also important the subtle, softer aspects of habits, subtle, softer aspect of preventive healthcare, and combine all of this with a little bit of gamification that lead to kind of permanently changing the habits towards a better future.
Right. Thank you, Himanshu. So, Dr. Sabine, since you strategy, yes, I would love to know how you have been using data and technology in healthcare.
So, the first time I realized how important data was, especially health data was, when I actually got roped in by Dr. Gawande, one of my long-term mentors, and I'm sure that you recognize who that is, Parvi. He is a really good healthcare author, and he was actually the person who incepted Obamacare. Now he's an advisor to the Biden administration on health issues as well. He was the one who kind of wrote me into working on Obamacare's financial designing of health services. Right now, it seems like a very, the very non-interesting subject. I thought so too. But when I started getting into it, breaking down health systems, understanding how something costs what it does, right? Especially in healthcare, from considering rents in those space to fees that you pay to your employees to electricity charges, right? That actually build up to an understanding of health systems in a detail that was very nuanced. And I think those, and as I was saying, that we always blame healthcare systems to be exploitative. Some of them are, definitely. I'm not taking away from that area. But then, if we use some of these systems, especially the insurance-based systems, correctly, right, trying to make sure that we don't just pay out less, but pay out less because people are getting sick less. Ensure, and that is what the New Zealand model is. That is what the Netherlands model is, right? The insurance companies actually ensure that you, if suppose you have problems like, as Mukul was mentioning, hypothyroidism or PCO, some of the most common problems that women face today, then they actually ensure that you get a gym subscription. They ensure that you get a trainer who is specialized in those areas, and you actually lose weight. And as Himanshu also mentioned, that non-communicable diseases are some of the biggest problem points at this point, and also areas where we do not have the kind of research because causality is not clear. Now, data is what will give us the insights in causality. Data is what will give us insights in causality of issues like cancer, issues like why predisposition to infection is more in certain pockets, in certain areas, in certain races than anyone else. What is causing some of these non-communicable diseases? What is resulting in maternal mortality? What is resulting in increased UFI-MR across the globe than it was 20 years ago when we hit our lowest low at that point? So I think data needs to be used not just in terms of imparting personal care, but in optimizing systemic care, right? And it sounds extremely unsexy and something that is so boring and needs to be done in a boardroom, but no, it's really not. It's something that will result in long-term shifts in perspective, something that needs to be done to ensure that anyone, any caregiver on the ground, be it a doctor, a nurse, or an alternative medicine practitioner, can actually do their job well. And unfortunately, because the world has opened up to alternative medical ideas, preventive medical ideas lately, not as early as curative ideas were explored in our health system. So the data that we have on these systems is very limited. So the first thing that we need to go do is go out there and get the data. As I think Prashant or Vivek mentioned, that we don't really have the kind of data that says that, I think Himanshu mentioned that walking 10,000 steps actually makes our life better. But that's actually not completely true. We do have some of the data there, but these are the kind of data that we need to go out and get. Because if we don't, then there is no proof of concept, right? And once we have that proof of concept, then applying that to health systems in a way that we focus on ensuring that we do not create that expenditure by improving health and not just improving health statistics is, I think, the solution. So I think that is how data has really changed my perspective towards how systems operate, how systems work, because these numbers are not just numbers. They actually give us the entire picture of what's going on.
Very rightly said. Yeah. So sorry, Himanshu, about the 5:30 a.m. messages. That would have been me. And
No, it's perfect. See, I'll tell you. Essentially, I and most of us will have one or the other habits which we want to improve in a lifetime, which we never end up doing. Waking up early morning is like every year or every month there's a thing that I decided, chalo, is mahine I will try to wake up early. There's an alarm that goes off on my iPhone every morning at 7:30, right? And I think I've tried to move it towards 6:30, but I think 7:30 is pehle, matlab, I've never been able to really maintain a habit. I may wake up when I'm taking an early morning flights, but never really managed to do that. Although I would want to.
Got it. Yes, of course. But so you mentioned alarms. That actually reminded me of this alarm that I used to have, where you have to solve a mathematical question for it to stop. And I somehow managed to solve those in my sleep. I'm not that smart. I'm not, but it just happened. It just so happened that I would solve it and I would go back to sleep. So, Himanshu, do you think that if we gamify health, would there be, similar consequences? Because nowadays there are a lot of startups that are coming up with gamification in the health tech space, and I would just like to know what you think about the future of these startups.
So I'll tell you, startups are happening all across the healthcare. I'll just give you an example. One of my batchmates is into a startup, and he recently, I think last week, only got a $2.5 million funding. They only are into diagnostic of cancer tests, right? What he has done, he is doing a certain test which cost about 25,000. He's trying to bring down that cost. And what he was telling me that there are only 2-3 players in India that end up doing that test, which, looking at your genetics and DNA, right, will be able to kind of predict whether you have a tendency to get into a situation where you might end up getting cancer, right? So it's more on the preventive side, right? He's trying to bring down the cost. We were trying to be collaborated with him, and we're trying to take this product to few CXOs, because to be fair, not everybody will be willing to pay this 25,000-30,000 kind of test, right? This is one segment, which is just basic diagnostic, right? Another segment, this is one real life problem that we are trying to solve. A global pharma company based out of India, they reached out to us saying that, can you help us do diagnostic tests for our employees, which is about 20,000 employees in about 20 cities in the country. That you will be surprised to know that all the big diagnostic chains in India, which is Dr. Lal Path Labs, SRL, Thyrocare, none of them are beyond, let's say, there are 4 or 5 cities, right? They can only service some areas of Delhi. I think eye opener. None of them have any center in any wellness center in the entire Gujarat. No Ahmedabad, no Surat. And these, by the way, are our fastest growing cities, right? These are basics, right? And startups are coming. So we now are trying to tie up with a startup that can get all diagnostic chain into one aspect. So this is one aspect. On the gamification, right? And this is pure research that tells us that the moment you gamify something, right, the chances of people adhering to those outcomes highly increase, right? So when we gamify something like taking simple steps, we are trying to create games on our platform, and we are not really replicating something like a steps of go, which is only steps, right? What we are also saying that, hey, can we say that I take a target or I challenge Ishani, saying, Ishani, for 1 week, we'll all try to do 10 minutes of power yoga. So the pop-up will come onto my app, which is linked to my Google calendar or iPhone calendar, whichever calendar you subscribe to. And it says, okay, 11 o'clock, can you do 10-minute power yoga? It just says yes or a no. Simple technology, nothing big about it. But at least what happens is that you get to do those things. Now, how many of us will say that, okay, I will put into my calendar, right? It can be done. It's not that it cannot be done, right? But is a facility available where I say, okay, I have done, and it captures that. And it also captures whether I and Nishani both are doing together or not. I miss and I kind of do it in the evening, right? The idea is when people actually, and we did a pilot amongst our own Alive Health community, where we realized that, and we tried to do yoga. We tried to do a half an hour yoga in the morning, right? I am a culprit every single day, right? But there are people, so on the first week, we had out of 20 employees that we have, only 5 attending. Then we tried to gamify. We also bought something called a habit coach, right? A habit coach talks to you, right, and understand your behavior, right? For example, there could be somebody like me who doesn't walk, right? He will say, okay, can we gamify this entire thing for you, where we say, okay, 12 o'clock, you'll take a 10-minute break where you take a glass of water and you'll walk for 10 minutes, right? And listen to a music, right? Simple. These are very simple, basic things, right? Which can be done. There are people who say, okay, yaar, my house is on the 2nd floor. Okay. Every single day when you're coming down to go to the market, you'll only take stairs and not take the lift, right? Very simple games. But tied back to a habit coach. That is when we realize, and this number from 5 out of 20 went up to about 14 out of 20, right? We still struggle, right? There is no hard and fast rule of getting it to everybody, right? But these are where gamification come into picture, from small games to larger games. And then I think what key aspect that people miss is that there has to be some sort of a gratification or a reward. Now that reward could be monetary, or that reward could be, okay, I will ensure that this takes care of my health. Right? That could be the biggest reward for any of us. Unless you tie it back to a reward, no game will work.
Agreed. So I think it's a matter of how you perceive it. Unless you understand that, yes, this gamification is truly going to benefit me, it's or not of use. So while I understand that a lot of people do, yes, Himanshu wanted to say something.
No,
Oh, no, Prashant, yes, go
sorry,
ahead.
sorry, Pallavi, to interrupt you. What I feel is it's very important to gamify these kinds of things, is because they actually don't show results so quickly. So a lot of people lose their motivation because what has happened to this generation, and mostly in the case of exercises, we want the results very quickly. Like, we watched the video, we got the knowledge, everything which you see, you want the results very quickly. Anything which is longer than 15 minutes, the attention goes back. And we are talking about yoga, which itself is going to take like a 3 or 4 months or longer to show results. And it's a complete lifetime activity which you need to do. So that's why gamify rewards. And while Himanshu was saying that the biggest reward should be your health, but that, like, to realize that particular thing, that requires a very high level of thinking. So for kids, we show some gifts and some things like those things. But it's on your point about gamification, it becomes so important for these kinds of things. Just wanted to
Yeah, I just add one small bit to it. I think the biggest reward that we've realized in our research when we're working with few corporate is not money, is not health, is actually a gratification where the guy can go to a social media and say, "Hey, I have beaten this guy," or "I'm number one in my community." It could be a corporate community, it could be a your entire housing community, right? Somehow that seems to work the maximum, right? At least for the younger generation, where hey, can I just post this into my Insta, right? So
Right, right. Instant gratification that actually
yeah.
seems to work in a lot of cases. So, like someone mentioned, I think Dr. Sabine mentioned that there should be a proof of concept. So, social concept, when you're doing something, you're able
Yeah.
to showcase it
Yeah.
to the world. That definitely works out. And talking about numbers, and Dr. Sabine, you mentioned that data is not sexy, but I think now views are changing because I read somewhere that being a data scientist is one of the sexiest careers of this century. So, I think working with numbers, people are realizing how important it is, especially in healthcare. Moving on to, Rashmi and Vivek, let's talk a little bit about yoga. So, like Himanshu mentioned, that yoga is a process that, it's very slow and it takes time. And, Prashant also mentioned that it's not something that can give you instant results. But, what would you say is the core essence of yoga? Either of you can go first.
Rashmi, would you like to go first?
Yeah. So yeah, as rightly mentioned by Himanshu and Prashant, yes, it is going to take a lot of time, maybe 3-4 months. But I want people to understand, like, why is the reason that they are actually choosing healthcare at what point of time in their lives. And when they have a goal, I think they are committed to dedicate that sort of time. Um, uh, as I mentioned, if somebody, like, as Mukat was saying that, when his wife actually went into that kind of stage when she was dealing with kind of a hormonal imbalance, and that is the time when she realized, and considering the fact that she is not into allopathy that much, so she knew that what she is, where she is, and where she wants to go. Like all of us know, like, what do we want to get out of this particular routine or course or habit. We would be dedicating that amount of time. And when we talk about yoga, actually it's not just only about physical exercises or doing perfect asanas. Vivek would agree to me. It is actually about a lot of things. It is about how to work, how to breathe, how to act, how to stand, how to sit, how to think, how to behave with others, how to be a better person, what is your actual purpose of life, like where you come from, where you go. So I think if somebody is interested into yoga, and yoga considering it such a yoga considering it to be such a huge experiential science, I think it totally depends on the person who is getting into and what they want to get out of it. If somebody just wants to they have some kind of cervical pain and they want to get out of it, so once they get to know about all those exercises and all those things that need to take into consideration so that their cervical is fixed, I think once they have that end results, they will come out of it, because they know that they are suffering from a problem. Until unless there is no problem, we will not look for a solution. And if we have a problem and if we want to get a solution, it doesn't matter if we get it in 1 week of time or we get in 1 year of time. For me, like as I said, my problem was not that I'm suffering, I do not have a great flexibility, or my spine is in a way twisted. No, that was actually not the kind of fixation I wanted to get it done from yoga. So for me, it was realizing my purpose of life. And when we know that until unless this is fixed, I did not care about my flexibility or if my cervical is fixed or whatever. For me, my end result was to get some clarity in life. What is going to make me happy, and am I like really searching for just a job or just to fix my relationship, or it is something more to it, like what is like why I'm existing, and a lot of questions. So until unless I don't find the results of what my question was on the day one, I think I would be committed to dedicate that much amount of time. I think that is what the essence is. And the essence totally depends upon um, the level your question has. So yoga is like how much ever time you dedicate, there's something new to find, like how, like first we want to try to understand the superficial level, the surface level, and then we realize acha acha isse niche bhi kuch hai, and then we go to our physical level, and then it's like no. Even though I'm like physically fit, there's something that's, the energy in me is not correct. So I go deeper, and then then realize, okay, so my physical body is fixed, my energy is fixed, but there's something that I'm, closely associated with my likes and my dislikes, and actually that is the point where I find that, I am if I use that word, I'm fucked up at that level, at that mental level, I'm fucked up. So I'm doing great yogasans. My energy is perfect, but still I'm not happy, and that is the only thing that I know. I can post it on social media, but I need to fix this. And then we realize that none of the medicines are going there. So those are all the psychosomatic disorders that come from your your psychology, that comes into your breath, that comes into your energy. You're not feeling energetic at some point of time in your day, of your day, and then it becomes the part of your physical entity as well. So you realize ki are nahi, nahi, the physical is fixed, but the energy is fixed, the emotions are fixed. And when emotions are also fixed, because a lot of people deal with emotions. If I talk about today's generation or today's time, it's not the diseases which work at the physical level. We don't see polio happening nowadays. So we have, in a way, through medical sciences and to technology, we have actually worked upon our physicals, but at the grosser, at the core level, we are still we don't see any approach or any medicine going that way. So when I talk about yoga, how the essence of yoga, so we can go back to the atomic level and the molecular level, and we understand that Himanshu was talking about the DNA and the genetics. So there are two things that actually determine how are we going to shape our life, and one is the nature, which we can't change, because that comes from the moment we become a fertilized egg. So it becomes your, like, most of your coding is already done. You know how you are going to be for the rest of your life. And the rest of the thing, when you're born, the environmental changes that you as a child or as a entity goes through decides the rest of your upbringing and everything, like how are you going to be as a person. So yoga, actually, when I went into become a prenatal and postnatal natal teacher, I actually realized, like, yoga actually can help you the kind of baby you want to have. Even though your nature or your nurture was different, the partner that you're going to mate with has a different nature and nurture, but you togetherly can come out. Consider the science behind this, and it takes a lot of years, right? And then you actually go back to create the type of child you want, and that is something which is very important for us to realize. Because I think when I enrolled for that particular course, that was actually a mesmerizing point in my time, when again I asked these questions, like, why do we even have to create a life? Because they're already happening so much. And then if a child is created, then he or she will have to go through all those social, economical, financial, emotional, mental trauma, or the positive sides of it. But then why to do it? So essence of yoga is as much as you want to, like, जितना नीचे आपको, जितना वक्त है आपके पास, जितनी आपके पास शिद्दत है, आप उतना अंदर तक जा सकते हैं योग में, और उतना ही आप उससे निकल के वापस आ सकते हैं. So I think
what I'm taking away from your answer is that it's almost like an onion with a lot of layers, and you can just keep going and going, and it depends on how deep you want to get into things.
Yeah, so we see all those social media forwards आते रहते हैं ना कि जितना जितना खूबसूरत हमारा ब्रह्मांड दिखता है, उतना ही खूबसूरत हमारा सेल भी है. So it's actually that, if you want to see it, it actually we are in a way at a very atomic and molecular level related to the cosmos, and it works. If you dedicate that much amount of time, you would realize that it has already been done 10,000 years ago.
Right.
So,
But at the same time, like, all of this talk about cosmos and energies, it makes me think about the conversation that we had over the phone. So Vivek, I would like to ask you this question. Do you think the practice of yoga can be separated from religion and spirituality? Because I think both you and Rashmi, both of you mentioned during your introduction that you were looking for answers and even something beyond that. So has that helped you, or is that something that you preach as well?
See, religion is just a way to deliver the message, to deliver the real essence of yoga. For example, a postman coming and delivering a letter, right? The letter is the what is written in the letter is the real essence, not the postman, right? So there are we have different yoga teacher, we have different people who have been teaching, but I think the most important thing is the essence of yoga. At times, people use religion or spirituality to gain some advantages. I mean, so definitely we can clearly differentiate these two things. But important to know that, for example, when we were a child, right? There are a lot of things which we couldn't understand at that stage, so there were different ways. For example, reading stories, reading comic books, right? Learning through different kinds of games. So these are the ways. So in the same way, religion is a way, but for some people, they will not be able to understand, even not be able to start their if they take the first step towards the path, right? So just to give you an example, another scenario. So in Krishna, in Gita, Krishna said, Dvait, right? There's something your mind can perceive, and there is something you can't perceive, right? For example, there's a murti, there's an idol which you can see. But if I say there's someone somewhere in the sky, something, your mind uh, will not be able to understand, right? What are you referring to? So that's why we need some kind of story. We need a god, right? It just so as Bhagat Singh said, it's just a lathi. It's just a lathi for people, just it's a support. It's just a support. It's not a core essence. So I hope I have answered your question. It was
Yes, yes, of course. I remember the conversation that we had over the phone and you
yeah.
mentioned it. So that's great. Can you mention the name of the book that it's from in case you can recall it?
Yeah, so it's from why I'm a atheist. It's a very small book written by Bhagat Singh.
Okay, all right. Thanks for that. So again, Rashmi and Vivek, I know that both of you have had some experience with virtual teaching, and that's something that I wanted to ask you about because, like we discussed earlier as well, that it's not possible to be omnipresent, and during the pandemic, a lot of people took up that method of learning. So, what was your experience like, and do you think it is as effective as in-person learning?
Shall I go first, Rashmi?
Sure, sure.
Yeah. So initially I wasn't very sure. So I started teaching very late. Some of my friends who are yoga instructors started very early. I wasn't sure, so I was focusing on my own practices. And then when I started teaching, I was surprised to see that when I was teaching an hour in the morning and the kind of feedback I was receiving, obviously you can't match that experience with in-person classes, but doing nothing and learning from a online class, I think there are a lot of benefits. But you can't learn some advanced practices because for let's say for some advanced asana or for some advanced meditation, you need someone in person, right? Because there can be some side effect or some precaution which you won't be able to take, right? And also need to understand for yoga and meditation, the environment is very, very important. That's why if you go for any silence course, they control your diet, right? Because our diet directly affect our thoughts, directly affects the way we think, right? So that's one. Second is controlling your environment. So pure air. For example, in Delhi NCR, the air is too bad, right? So for pranayam, it will not give you the results, right? So your food, your environment, right, and the right guidance which you can get in person. Yeah, for the beginners, it's a good idea to have online
Virtual
session. It
ones.
will not be a
Right.
problem.
So, Rashmi, even during our conversations, we spoke about how important certifications are and how, if the trainer is trained, only then it makes sense to follow them. So, the importance of having a guru and things like that. Could you tell us a little bit more about certifications in case there is someone who would like to, follow yoga or go into it as a professional, what would they have to do?
Again, as a student, so as a student, like where you want to take your yoga studies to. Same goes when you try to become a teacher. So what kind of teacher you want to become? Like what yoga means to you? Like traditionally, if I speak traditionally and authentically, if I speak, yoga is totally based on Guru Shishya Parampara. So you need to have a teacher. You need to have a teacher who is enlightened, and there are a lot of qualities in a teacher, with there are a lot of qualities that if you find that in a person, you can call that a teacher, only from the yogic point of view, right? So your Guru Shishya Parampara is first and the foremost thing, according to me, is very much essential. Answering the previous question about going digital or going in person, obviously it's very important that you go in person, because a teacher is the one. Just like you can't learn music or swimming, going digital, right? You can't do it. It is totally purely experiential. Okay. Same goes with yoga. If you have a teacher, or you Upanishad, if I talk about one of the very key ancient aspect of yoga is Upanishad, and Upanishad basically means Up-ni-shad. Up is sitting close to, Ni is with nishtha, or with dedication, as Shad is to listen, Shruti, Shad. So Upanishad is basically going closer to your guru, sitting next to him with a nishtha bhav in your mind, and then listening to what your guru has to say. So those are the Upanishads. So I can actually find a copy here, and I can say that I have learned Yajurved, or I have learned Kathopanishad or Murkhopanishad. Doesn't work like that, traditionally and authentically speaking. So when we talk about certifications, it is very important that where you want to go and where you come from. If you want to uh, uh, just open a center, and you just want to have a certificate to get to help you legally open a center, I think a simple 200 hours of certificate from any institute can work. And even if you do not want to do any yoga, and you can pay 1 lakh rupees, you can get that, and then you can have 780 square feet of space, and then you can open up your center. So it can be as simple as that. But traditionally, again speaking, that is not I want what that is not what I wanted to do. Yeah, right. So I went into good research, and I try to understand like which is going to be the best institute, who is going to actually make sure that they are teaching authentic and traditional yoga in the first place, so that we are welcome there as a student. And I got to know about Government of India. I got to know about the ministry that is recently formed, called as Ayush, which is Ayurveda, Yoga, Unani, Siddha, homeopathy, and naturopathy. So that is what AYUSH stands for. And that totally talks about holistic approach towards health and well-being. So it's not just only important that your physical, mental, and emotional is fixed. It is also about intellectual, which leads to all those inventions and theories. I can be a perfectly balanced person. My physical, my energy, and my mental can be fixed, but all those creations, all those telescopes and all those telescopes and microscopes, all those inventions, all those theorems and axioms has to come from somewhere, right? And that is where, even though you are a perfectly balanced human being, you should be intellectually elevated to to help the community in a better way. So that also is taken care by yoga. So these are the aspects that if you want to get be educated about, you can choose an education system like that, which is taken care by Ministry of Ayush, Government of India. The yoga certification board was founded, yeah. So the yoga certification board under the Ministry of Ayush and Government of India was founded, where all these eminent gurus came together, and they formed a system, they formed a curriculum, they standardized processes. Like if somebody is adequate to perform these things, or perform these things, or have this much of knowledge, can be entitled for a level 1 instructor, or a level 2 instructor, level 3 instructors. So this body was formed basically to regulate that योग के नाम पे कुछ भी नहीं हो रहा है. There is no aqua yoga going on. There is no beer, hot, Bikram, Rashmi yoga, this yoga, that yoga, Pallavi yoga, Jagriti yoga going on, right? So I cannot just go on and create my own kind of yoga type of thing. So I think Yoga Certification Board is something you should, get accreditation from. And under Yoga Certification Board, if you can see YCB approved, there are different individuals who are approved, and there are different institutes that are approved. So you can, if it is not possible for you to, get enrolled in one of the prominent institute which is just Delhi based or just Mumbai based, if you belong to a tier 2 or tier 3 city, you can actually go there and find the nearest Gurukul or ashram or a yoga institute where from you can get this accreditation from. So yeah, if somebody is looking for a yoga instructor who can teach them, I think again, Ministry of Ayush, Government of India launched it in June 2019. They came up with this particular application called as Yoga Locator app, where you can actually look for a yoga trainer who is in your vicinity. So it is totally based, it takes into consideration your physical location, and they can see like who all are available near you and who are certified. So it becomes easier for you to look for a teacher that way and then learn from them.
That's actually very interesting. And I know from your story that it was very helpful for you when you started out practicing. So another thing that I want to talk about, you stressed a lot on, traditional and authentic yoga. So Vivek, what do you think of the Western influences on yoga? And Rashmi, I would love to hear something from you as well, because you mentioned traditional and authentic yoga.
Yeah, so so I have met a lot of foreign yoga instructor. When I visited Croatia as an ambassador of yoga in 2015, I met a lot of people. And in India, when I was going through my teacher training program, a lot of foreign teachers, they take a lot of proud when they teach yoga. That is one. Second, they really practice. Most of them who are authentic yoga instructor, they are physically very strong. They practice the true yoga. So it was very, it was an eye opener for me to see the way they were practicing and that the way they respect. This is something we I think most of Indian don't do, because this is something we get easily. For them, even getting a yoga instructor, it was a difficult task. Nowadays, it's now comparatively easy. And that's the one aspect. Now talking about this all bro yoga, hot yoga, I mean, that is really spoiling the core essence of yoga, right? Which is I think wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. So Rashmi, you would like to add something?
Yeah. So again, speaking of, like, I may be advocating at my own level about, being connected to yoga in a very authentic and traditional way. But I, at the same time, I am an Indian and I see Indians and I see how, since we already have this backup of spirituality and religion and whatever you call it, नमक मिर्ची हल्दी, we think हाँ हम तो better ही हैं लोगों से, and but when I see seriously, when Europe is one such country, USA is another such country, even though they have this Western influence, but at the same time, at a student level, they are eager to learn. So they might not be able to have those kind of institutes where they can learn traditional yoga from, but they are the people actually who book their flights and they come for 1 or 3 months of yoga retreat, and they come to India for the yoga retreat, and they come to India. So I think it's speaking about how serious or how thankful we are to our traditional system of yoga. I would say that yes, Westerners are actually the people who take it seriously, and they respect it because they did not have from their childhood the backup or the cushion of spirituality and these ancient texts that way. So yeah, but speaking of teachings, obviously we should be pioneer, but I should not say that we should be pioneer, but we are in a way are lucky enough, I would say, but we should be leveraging that to the fullest.
Right. So like you were, talking about nature and nurture. So yoga is something that has been a part of that. And I feel the fact that, we can appreciate Westerners trying to tap into this culture, it's pretty great. So like even Mukat mentioned during our call that, most of his traffic is from the US. So Mukat, I would love to know more about your blog. What have been, what have been your findings, and what are the strategies that you're using to reach out to people?
Okay. So like I'm completely into content part. So like as you correctly mentioned, so like most of my traffic on blog comes from Western countries. So one of the main factors for me is basically due to the internet penetration, I will say. So like if we compare the data, if we go to statistics, like India has approximately 34% of internet penetration in comparison to US has approximately 86-87% of internet penetration. So maybe that is one of the one of the additional reasons what Vivek and Rashmi has mentioned. People are more inclined towards these kind of activities. And talking about my content, what I do on my blogging part is like I have divided a whole my content into three subsections. So first section is basically about yoga poses. So we cover all the aspects of yoga poses from beginner to advanced level, how to do that yoga and what are the benefits, what are the contraindications, and how to basically do the modifications in various yoga poses, so that can be of use to anyone practicing the yoga. And the second section talks about basically about the yoga as an alternate method to treat various health problems. So yoga in many cases can act as a catalyst, as an additional activity that can help you treat many diseases, or single-handedly it can even if you're at a very early stage of any disease, so it can single-handedly help you to treat that disease completely. So that section completely cover all those details. And third section is basically about the good lifestyle and well-being products. So that we recommend such kind of products. So just to give you an example, like if we talk about yoga mat, so there are many low cost yoga mats that are available in the market, which are available of PVC material. So if we talk even about big brands such as Decathlon or many other such brands, so in India we have a mentality कि budget एक सबसे बड़ा important factor होता है for choosing any kind of a product. So people get inclined towards that kind of a product कि ठीक है budget में है चीज, they read number of reviews and all online, and they tend to buy that product, but ignoring the important aspect ki whether what product I am choosing, is that useful or is that healthy or not. Like as I'm mentioning, PVC yoga mats, those are made of some cancer causing chemicals which are not good for your health. So maybe that is my motive in that third section. What I try to cover is recommend some very good products which are good for your health and for the environment as well. So these are the three broad sections what I cover, what I try to cover on my content. And talking about strategies, like as I earlier mentioned, I am a purely mechanical engineer person, and I'm not much into tech part, I'll say. And I'm doing this as a hobby thing, and I've been learning about all these things since last 1 year, this SEO, digital marketing, all that stuff. And it's been a learning phase, I'll say, and I'm continuously learning about that thing. And SEO and digital marketing is the only mode through which I'm going to promote my content.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mukat, for that answer. You spoke about how people have become more conscious about the products that they're using, and we are trying to incorporate more and more products which are, let's say, eco-friendly or just sustainable living. We're promoting
True.
that. So I think that this kind of a change has well, it has radically developed over the past year, maybe since the pandemic. So, Prashant, do you have anything to share about how it might have impacted your journey? Did you see any changes during this time?
Yeah, our business got shut completely. So honestly, but on a serious side, like I work in a school industry, and like it, and the best part was it hit in the month of March when all our renewals happens with these schools. And we talked about cost and everything, and in the initial we were talking about the accessibility. Well-being is still a tertiary product for schools, and what we felt was, if we have to reach all the stakeholders in the schools, which is students, teachers, parents, and the educators, reaching out to the schools would be the most effective manner. But as Mukat was saying, individually we would like to have the best mat for ourselves, but when it comes to students, the schools bargain with us on like 20 rupees, 10 rupees basis per student. And that's where the things are. So everyone gives us the meetings to talk about well-being or how it can happen. But when they want to buy a product, the product they want to buy right now are still edtech or something which is very fleshy, which they can show on the school board or to the parents that they have bought it for 500 and can charge 700 from the parents. Uh, and I was talking to Himanshu, it's all about money making, which a lot of people still wants from this sector. And the next is, how can we show very quick results? Because they say this year we can put our money, but the next year we want the parents to pay us that particular money. So can you show us the results in the 1 month, 1 year itself? And the time period we get is the moment the January will come, exams will be the most important thing, and the well-being has to take a back burner. So you have to finish it everything before. So March to December is our time frame where we just able to get one period. So we kept on revamping, but we have been able to successfully bring something over here. But right now in school business, it's a very bad situation in Delhi. In the month of February mid, we started hearing some good conversations around it, that the schools are going to reopen by April. But again, there's huge confusion. There was this school in December, and it's a career launcher school, which was saying that they will sign the program with us, and in month of March, the school is shutting down. So it's a uh, it's not an easy industry actually, because the land cost is humongous. The government norms are quite tough, and then demands from parents and all the aspects is really boiling down at the price level. And at last, well-being is still not considered to be the main product. It's still considered to be a tertiary product. Let me focus on math, science, some fancy ed tech, which can every parent can see in his parents meeting. How can I show well-being to a parent, right? And so that has been our experiences. Though there are some bright spots, that there are a lot of programs now. Happiness curriculum is going. So a lot of all the schools have heard about well-being, so they won't say no to you when you want to approach them. There's a program called uh, School Cinema, and School Cinema is a great program. What they have done is some national awards people have come together, and they show well-being in the form of video. So so in the form of video, and there's a SCL lab which is following a life university philosophy. So what it shows to me is the path has started. The first 5 years for any thing to start incubating, got understood, takes time. And this COVID has really hit hard to this particular well-being industry, particularly in schools, because, and we have been on the front of completely offline. So we, as Rashmi said, Guru Shishya wala structure, but we were somewhere over there in the completely offline mode, because we felt like this environment of teaching anger management, we actually don't make the one section interact with the other section when the well-being class is going on, because we feel these kids, the other kids might feel that how he can share his family experiences, and they might not know this particular student, so they might make some other prejudice around it, and maybe then they may say some comments to him. So we tried to create a very safe environment and those kinds of things, which we felt in online would be quite tough. We tried to do it, not successful. So yeah, that's the how. But we are hopeful that 2021 we will. So we are starting completely from scratch. A lot of changes have actually happened in the school industry. Schools have cut down their budgets drastically. So that's what is happening. And there one interesting experience which I had. It's a big school, very big school. I was talking to them. They said वेलबींग ठीक है, कुछ इंटरनेशनल लाओ जिसमें हमारे टीचर भी ट्रैवल कर पाए और बच्चों को भी लेके जाएंगे और कुछ फोटो शोटो खींचेंगे, वेलबींग भी हो जाएगी और स्कूल का प्रमोशन भी हो जाएगा. So they are ready to charge these kids parents 1 lakh rupees for this Singapore trip or something, and everyone is happy. Like them, mentality was, and it's right also. Some of their teachers would be able to travel. There will be a lot of lovely pictures which they can showcase in their books, and no money has to be provided by the school, because the whole money will come from the parents, and the cost would be included for the teachers also. So
That is how a lot of people view well-being,
No, and the parents also demands that आप कितने international visits कर चुके हो आप. So demand from parents also needs to start coming, that we need well-being for our kids, that how the depression problem is getting resolved in your school. And so I have got so many experience, but like one thing which I really hate in school is there's a board outside every school that this particular kid has got 95%.
Yes.
If
the honor roll.
Yeah, if any one of us goes as a parent and we see that this particular kid, the first motivation is my kid name is to come here, because that's the best thing. That's why the school is showcasing why there is not a board that this particular kid in this month has helped so many kids in our school. This particular kid wishes everyone good morning. So if you are showcasing those things, if you are portraying those things, I will try to be good in those particular things. So that's where the whole gap is there. But the good part is a lot of organizations are coming, government is taking some steps. So it's still a little bit more way. And schools needs to consider this as a primary program, and then only the change will come. But yeah, it's an interesting journey.
I completely agree, with especially like you mentioned, the honor roll, which is there outside every school and even colleges for that matter, because for the longest time, I had the fear that my parents would come for convocation and unko kisi aur ke bacche ke liye clap karna padega, Why would they spend so much money, buy tickets, come to Manipal and, applaud for somebody else's child who's received the, outstanding student award or whatever. But in hindsight, it was a very stupid thing to think about, because there's much more than being at the top of your class. However, this kind of mentality that Indians have, or not targeting Indians, but
Everyone.
generally people around me. So, Dr. Sabine, what do you think? During your time when you were preparing for COVID-19, the plan, did it involve anything for the citizens as such, that some actions that they could take?
So, first of all, coming back to the fear of convocation, dude, I haven't attended like any one of my convocations. So that I have not attended one, not one till date. Yeah. Yeah, that's a legitimate fear. I think someone should name it. Anyway, so coming to COVID, I think COVID has been an eye opener for a lot of people. A short-term eye opener, I suppose, but still is something. See, talking about pandemics, they are bad. They are the reason of a lot of pain that all of us have gone through in the last over a year now. It's been 13 months almost. I think in India, news started trickling somewhere around February, and since then our lives have been turned upside down. But I think that it's not the first time this is happening. Not even to us. We have gone through pandemics before. The world has gone through pandemics before, and we haven't really learned much from it. And I think that is happening this time around as well. Of our team, one of the biggest changes personally for me during this 1 year has been the travel. I mean, even day before yesterday, I traveled 900 kilometers on a bike from Djibouti to Addis Ababa, where I am right now. And it has been a crazy journey last 1 year. Though I think one thing that we have learned has been how to understand two things. One is healthcare in its preventive measures, because now we realize the cost of not really reaching out to so many people, because now we are seeing it as the number of death counts counting up, right? It's not just you and me. A lot of us have had family who have suffered through this. In my team of 120 people on the strategy team, we have lost 43 people which is more than 30%, 33% rather, of the entire team to COVID. And people have lost their spouses, people have lost kids who they weren't able to protect because of the exposure that they got. And not just the first experience, we all have seen the numbers. Everyone knows that the global death count is going on and on. And I think that has kind of shaken us up a little bit for investment in this sector, investment in prevention of care, investment in health, in such investment in making sure that we reach a basic, the set normal that we had in terms of dietary deficiencies, in terms of health deficiencies, can be moved up slightly bit at least, right? This time, the kind of funds that almost every government in the world has allocated to health budgets have been slightly better. So we might as well take advantage of what we are learning at the moment. I don't think it's lasting information. It's something that public information is going to last for a while, but might as well take advantage of it as long as it does. Second thing that I think we have understood is I've seen a huge shift of people trying to make the best of this entire year. Right? I've seen a lot of people working on personal health, working on, I think stuff like gyms have closed down, so community health has suffered. But a lot of stuff like intermittent fasting and other things have actually increased quite a bit. I still am not quite sure if it works or not. I really hope it does. But people have started focusing on health, be it out of fear, be it just out of the fact that there's not a lot else to be done right now. You don't have you cannot really hang out with people, you cannot really go out and spend time outside. So people have started focusing inwards. So I have some a little more faith in that fear that that habit might last. So I think those are the things that have drastically changed. And coming back to strategy, um, to be very honest, we are trying to heal a wound with a band-aid in this case. There is so much that needs to be done. There is so, as I was talking about health data recently, out of just in India, we have 236,000 primary healthcare centers, of which only 412 are manned officially. And I'm pretty sure some of them are those signing posts where people sign off on treatments. Primary healthcare centers are your basic area of treatment, even aiding your Anganwadi systems, aiding your preventive healthcare systems. If you actually look up, these are the systems that will help and are helping and should be in a position to help when we have public health outbreaks, when we have problems like spread of infection in a smaller area, when we have spread of malnutrition in a smaller area, or even as a systemic problem. So empowering these systems, I think, has been my goal throughout. Hasn't been a very successful journey yet, but fingers crossed. That's the hope that things might work out eventually.
Right. I mean, that's the best that we can do, just, hope that things work out. So we heard from Prashant and Dr. Sabine, but I would also like to hear from Vivek. How has COVID-19 impacted your sector? So something about the yoga studio maybe, or like we were talking earlier, the transition to virtual classes.
I think I can reach to more people now. People are more open to learn from people like me who can't travel to different cities. In fact, I've been attending a lot of classes from some senior faculty as well. In fact, I have done my first online silence course during the COVID time. So I think the impact is positive. If you talk about the Google search during the pandemic time, it's increased by 35%, right? The yoga word, the yoga search, right? So I think it's impacted positively, and people also are more aware, as one of the panelists, I guess Sabine was mentioning, right? That people are now more aware about preventive healthcare, as they have less options, and also recent the I mean, some stories from Bollywood came last year, and unfortunate stories. So I think those stories suggest that there's something bigger than our job, bigger than money, right? So I think those things impacting our life positively.
Okay, thank you, Vivek. So, on that note, I would actually like to, just have an open question for the panel, that what does holistic health and well-being mean to you? And like Vivek pointed out, that mental health has become a very centric point in this, in the whole holistic well-being sector. So, I would love to know your thoughts about that as well. Maybe we can start with Prashant. Yes.
Yes. So I wanted to comment on Vivek. So what I realized is all the frameworks which I saw about well-being, finance also is a very important part. So I'm sure Vivek also was pointing out, gathering all the funds and all the time thinking about money is not the right approach. But I come from a social background. I can pretty much tell you that at no point a person should keep finance completely out of the way. Finance is important, and finance is important for each one of us. So that's also very important, and a lot of people in JY would know that I also talk about a lot about finance well-being. That, and there's a very powerful thing that if you have got enough amount of money, the ability to take decisions changes quite drastically. You start thinking of a higher order thinking, which doesn't come until you are financially stable, or you are able to think that काफी पैसा है अब मेरे पास और मैं लाइफ को सस्टेनेबली चला सकता हूँ. So for me, mental, emotional, social, and social is another aspects, like uh, again and again the world's biggest well-being study being done at Harvard, which is still continuing from the last 76 years. It's only talks about that how many friends do you have, how many social connects do you have is very important. And Ishani does a great job into it, and hats off to her. But that's require a lot of efforts to keep your friends intact. So that's also like well-being at no point, like physical, mental, emotional, financial, would not come easily to you, and neither of them will show you results uh, at a at a quick point. And as Mukta talked about compounding, all of these works at the compounding thing. You make friends, you never know when you will actually may need them, but if you have a lot of friends, you might just reach out to them and they might be able to solve some of your major problems. Similarly, on the basis of physical, yoga, running, cycling, uh, so that's how well-being comes to me. It's all compounding. You have to focus on all these aspects about relationships, mental, emotional, social. So that's how I look at well-being. And I actually feel if you are only focusing on one aspect, you're actually not targeting well-being. You are actually targeting some particular aspect. Like a person who is just talking about finance, he's definitely on that particular financial vertical, but he's not on the well-being vertical. If he's only focusing on physical, like I'm going to gym every day and working out, making big muscles, so I'm definitely would have big muscles, but that's not well-being, my friend. Similarly, if you're just making a lot of friends, that I might think it's a good well-being vertical, yet your physical and your financial might struggle because you are not focusing on it. So if you have to think about well-being, you have to devote time to all these aspects, else it's a shallow, it's a break link which is not completely created, and a picture till the time it's not completed doesn't look good. That's how I look at the things over here. Request all the participants, like for my particular thing would be the messages, like well-being energy flows from four part: emotional, physical, mental, and the human spirit. Like how you want to achieve things. So when you are looking at your well-being, just don't think of one thing, look at all these four things. And there's a very beautiful uh, framework called Castle. It focuses on if you can lower down the picture, like self, know your strengths, what you really are as a person, and then know others. Like I might be saying I want to joke with the other person, but right now Pallavi is not in the mood to hear a joke. So what I've done is I've tried to make her laugh, but she is only getting angry. So my objective was different, but it's not solving that purpose. And lastly, that your every action has an impact on the whole universe. So if in today's webinar I just don't go on unmute and just keep clapping my hands or something, the whole session might get destroyed, and the whole experience of people get destroyed. So every action of ours has a huge impact on the whole bit. So whatever we do, we have to be responsible for that. So these are the three things which it talks about. And then like how it's basically for the schools, but I think it really relates to each one of our lives as well. And there's a lot of content on Castle Framework. If you are excited to start your journey about well-being, start reading it, and I think you will be on the right track to find it out. Thank you.
Right, Prashant. So, like you mentioned that, this is something for schools. I just wanted to ask that, is this also a way of integrating well-being and health into the educational curriculum?
Yeah, so that's how we do it. So if you see our whole curriculum, we follow the Castle framework that we are helping the schools to know about the curriculum. So what we say is the curriculum also needs to change, but the timeline for it is on a longer space. So like the biggest flaw right now we as a organization feel is happiness can't be a period. Happiness has to be the whole motto of a school. So right now, while we also start from a particular asking a school to give us one period, but then we try to integrate it, and the second and the third year we try to say the whole curriculum of yours will be following the well-being curriculum, and there should not be a separate period for this particular bit. So so that's how we think right now. But because the damage has been so humongously, that we first need to have a dedicated time, and then we can say the whole integration happens. So yeah, that's how we try to do it.
That's actually very interesting, because I think the framework can be applied in other fields as well, not just educational systems. But in the interest of time, maybe we can take this up after the question that I had for all the panelists. So Himansh, if you'd like to go next, what are your tips for holistic well-being and healthcare, and how do you see this sector progressing?
So I'll tell you, when we are doing corporates, right, so corporates, health and well-being has moved away from only physical. So they talk about physical, they talk about spiritual, they talk about legal, they talk about religious, right? They talk about all sorts of environmental, for example, right? What is environmental? It's like you do something with respect to environment, which has some impact on the bottom line or the top line of the company, and also creates that larger community. I'll give you an example where they say, okay, can on, let's say, World Environment Day, can we switch off the lights and or allow people to walk to office, something like that, right? Which creates a sense of gratification or sense of gratitude for the environment in which we are living, right? So on the corporate side, it's more of something that is, as would you call as value proposition to attract more better employees, or these things like great places to work, and also have some impact on the bottom line. At an individual level, right, I think people are moving towards, and pandemic has actually taught us that we can't take life for granted. We can't take our health for granted, right? As somebody was mentioning, they have lost a lot of people. And this is one disease, or one, whatever you want to call it, where we know somebody personal or somebody very near to us who has either lost his life or has suffered because of COVID, right? So at an individual level, this thing is going to continue. There is a little bit of what I call interest in personal health, right? I don't know how many oximeters were sold, right? To be fair, before March of 2020, none of us even knew what an oximeter is all about, right? We have started taking so many things for granted, which we are now not taking for granted. I could see, for example, in my colony, people who live below my flat is an elderly couple, right? I went to their house. Last 20 years, I've lived in the same place. I've never really gone to their house to actually ask, uncle, do you want anything to be bought from the hospital, from the market, right? Because they were not venturing outside, right? Although Amazon, everything were available, right? But just in case you need something, just give us a call or just call up. Kia, I just need this thing, because both their kids are outside, right? So I think what pandemic has also brought us closer emotionally, right? It's not only about physical, mental, it's also about that emotional connect, right? I think this is going to continue. Another aspect, I think nobody really talked about that. You see so many people moving to the hills or to different places to work, and that's also going to continue, right? People will never now come back to the same set of cities like Bangalore, Delhi, Bombay, and struggle, because a lot of jobs are going to move away into a very remote set, right? So it becomes much more important, and there's a negative side to it also. And I don't know, I was talking to a psychologist for one of the sessions, and he said, "Yeah, वो जो घर में झगड़े बढ़ गए हैं, because it has never happened that people for such a prolonged period of time were really working from house for like entire period of time. So they were working, जब work from home भी करते थे, तो husband used to work for 2 days, wife used to work for 2 days just to manage the kid. Now both are managing at the same time. Some people did not even have that two tables to kind of work together, right? So a lot of issues that got created. A lot of couples have told me that they actually got closer because of this COVID, right? And vice versa. There's opposite impact also of this. So where I see this going, I think people will become closer. There will be more, let's say, importance given to health, and it could be any sort of health, right? A lot of people will become more cognizant that this is an integral part, right? There will be a lot of fostering of camaraderie and relationship that's going to happen because of this. Because to be fair, you're not going to back to that same normal. The normal has changed, right? Normal will be changed forever whenever we come back to the new as well.
Yeah, right. So, talking about the new normal, Mukut, what are your tips for, uh, holistic health and well-being? Because you also mentioned that, you've been working with products, lifestyle products, and that is the new normal now. People are becoming more cognizant, like Himanshu mentioned. So, we'd love to know about what you think.
So I think like basically as Prashant rightly pointed out, like well-being is not just basically physical, you being physically fit or just mentally strong. So it covers holistically all the points, whether that is related to financial, social well-being. So it covers everything. So like let's say I'll compare human body to a machine. Like being a mechanical engineer, I always correlate the things with the machine. So to run the machine properly and to get some output out of it, you need to feed it properly. You need to do oiling, you need to do greasing, you need to do preventive maintenance. The same happens with the body as well. You need to feed it well with what you eat. So that also plays a very important role. What exercises you do, how frequently you do. So the outputs, what you expect out from the body is similar to that of a machine. If you expect something coming out beautiful or something beautifully crafted out of machine, so if you want something good out of a human body, we need to feed it well, we need to exercise well for maintaining overall wellness around us. So health is basically a driving force, whether that is financial matters, relationships, with your family, cultural, society. So everything is interrelated basically with the health.
Right. And, earlier also you mentioned the financial aspect. So I was just thinking about how during tobacco cessation programs, they always equate, the financials involved to what your life would be like if you stop smoking. So there's a lot of data revolving around that, if you stop smoking, you save XYZ amount of money, which people don't realize. But when you put it on paper, that's when it hits them. So I think again that's very important, and I believe Prashant also mentioned financial well-being. That is another aspect to look into. So I found that very interesting. Moving on, so Rashmi, would you like to share your tips?
Yeah, so I agree from Prashant, as he said, ki, I can't teach anybody yoga until unless I am suffering from hunger, right? So that's very important when your finances and your most of the aspects which are crucial in today's life, because finances is something आप अपने आप किसी भी भाषा, like you can talk to yourself in any language that in which you want, but to communicate with the outer world you actually need to speak the language that they understand, and I think money is that language that everybody understands, right? So I can be very well in terms of whatever I do, but if I'm not able to communicate or translate that into monetary terms, I think I'm no good to anybody. I think, and that you need to know that kind of communication as well. So you need to have a vocabulary like that, and that vocabulary actually is the bank balance that you have, right? So you need to have good words, and then you need to be able to communicate it to somebody else. So vocabulary, your bank balance, and then how do you transact? You know, how do you do the trading on that is very important. So yeah, that is one aspect. But I'll be speaking about the yogic point of view. So we need to be, I think, when as per the WHO's definition, it is not just the mere absence of diseases and infirmity. It's actually about the total balance of your physical, mental, and social well-being. But when we talk about a yogic definition of health, it is a way deeper than that. It talks about your energies, it talks about your mental condition, it talks about a lot of things that we actually don't try to give importance to. So I'll just give you a very simple example so that you realize the importance of what I'm speaking here. I will not go by the book definition of it. We are never actually bothered what are we eating, like how are we eating, where are we eating, what is the mood that we are eating, we with which we are eating. And we see it's just the rice that we are consuming, or the dal that we are consuming. But if we internally say, uh, that rice, when you consume it, doesn't become it doesn't remain the rice anymore, it becomes a part of you. The water we drink, it becomes a part of you. 70% of us is water, and yet we are not actually thankful to the water, right? We say that water is dead, we say the air is dead, we say the space is dead. But do we realize that all those panch bhutas are actually the reason why we are alive, and why we are in a perfect space? So being thankful and being considering that we are part of the nature, and the environmental part of it was spoken by Himanshu, the financial part was spoken by Prashant. Vivek talked about how we are as a machine, and we also need regular maintenance. So these are the things that actually are making us function. So we need to be making sure that everything is adequate at the right time, at the right space. And discipline is something that actually is missing, is very well talked by Prashant. So just to conclude here, like if we want to ensure well-being, we should be first disciplined. And if I talk about discipline, I'll give just three definition. If these three things are I think in control, we can say that we are following discipline. The first thing is have place for everything and have everything at its place. That's the first important thing. The second thing is have time for everything and have everything on time. And the third one is have procedure for everything and have everything as per the procedure. If you follow these three things, I think you have a very comfortable life, and you can say that you're following discipline.
So thank you for sharing the three different components. That's something to note down and take away from this. I would like to hear from Vivek and what he has to say about this.
Right. So about the tips, I think all of us understand that what needs to be done. So I don't think I need to mention about the obvious things which all of us understand. Now, I mean, the focus should be why it's not happening. Walking is good. Healthy eating habits, how they impact our body, but why it's not happening. So maybe your mind hasn't experienced it yet. That could be one. Second, maybe related to habit. So asking a lot of questions, why it is not happening, how, why, right, what. For example, in the beginning, Prashant said, early, what do you say? Makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise, right? Early to wake, early to rise makes a person healthy, wealthy, and wise. And then Himanshu is saying that, okay, I'm not a morning person. So do you see there is a conflict here? What is happening now? Himanshu will feel, okay, I'm not able to wake up early in the morning, so maybe I'm not a so-called nice person or not following the routine, right? But if you read, if you ask this question properly, if you go in depth, you will understand that our population has divided into three parts as the part of evolution. one, people who can wake up early in the morning, and second, the late riser, and some people in between. So that's answer this question, that some of us don't feel fresh in the morning. But do we ask this question? I don't think we have ever asked this question. So I think these basic questions are very, very important to ask. We all know what are the things needs to be done to keep our body and mind healthy. But asking relevant question, why it's not happening, or why you are not able to follow the routine, or your guide or your dietitian have been prescribing, right?
That's actually something to think about. So that's some food for thought. So I would actually like to take up a question from the audience, and I feel like Dr. Sabine would be able to answer this because it's about data science. But in case anybody else wants to, jump in and answer it, please go ahead. The question is from Anirudh. Anirudh, would you like to unmute yourself and ask?
Yeah, sure. So, Anirudh here. I come from a data science background, and as someone mentioned in the talk, like a lot of data is being collected. So the problem with data scientists right now is they are collecting the data, but they eventually don't know what is the scientific background behind it. So they at times they are unable to analyze it and eventually come down to a point where they can showcase the KPIs. So how can we collaborate with doctors and you guys so that it comes up well and we can eventually have improve the health of the society?
Hi Anirudh, how are you? Interesting question. Though I think there are a certain parameters set for converting health data into effective biostandard point markers, basically. So there are companies like IQVIA in India and MediHealth across the globe, which actually employ doctors to convert these data, be it in audio format, be it in video format, or be it in scribbly handwriting, uh, to convert them into data points which are actually understandable. And this definitely, so either you associate with them or you work with people who have understanding of health systems and who can overlay your data with, so I'm sure some of your data is in prose format and others is not exactly numeric data. So a lot of that can be converted into actionable data by using some of the K980 and other infrastructures which are put in place by either the government or the industry and such, which actually convert some of the health data statistics into actionable data, right? So either you get a healthcare personnel to do it for you, or you can work with some of these companies, small as well as large, who can help you with the data conversions and overlaying them with some of the industry standard systems. So if you want more information, you can certainly reach out, but I think that should really help you out in trying to assess the health of the system that you're analyzing.
Sure thing. We'll connect in this regard.
Sure.
Okay, great. So, okay, there is a link on the chat box, which I guess will be sent soon. And it's an offer from Alive Health. So maybe Himanshu can tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah. So essentially, not really promoting Alive Health. See, the concept about Alive Health is to form communities. And these could be corporate communities, these could be alumni communities, this could be any community. The idea is to promote health and well-being, and this is a holistic health and well-being across communities, right? So I've just shared a link. This is a link that we have created for Jagrati Yatra alumni. So you can just click on this link, download the app. So the moment you click on the link, you automatically become a part of the JY alumni community, which we have already got created from the backend, right? There are certain standard things that you end up getting because as a product, we thought that we have to take care about the larger audience. So it gives you almost 25% cashback on medicine delivery, up to 50% cashback on diagnostic. And these are not Alive Health as per se. So the medicine delivery comes from 1 mg. Diagnostic comes from ThyroCare 1 mg SRL, right? So you can pick and choose. And we've also created a host of programs. And to be fair, listening to a lot of you guys, I think I'll kind of reach out to you guys, the yoga teachers, also to get you guys onto our platform, right? Because we also have a program which is very specific pre and postnatal. Somebody has mentioned that how it can really have an impact, right? So more than welcome to kind of reach out to me. Do download and check out the app. I'm going to surely launch a challenge, which is what we mentioned by gamification, open to everybody from JY community, whoever joins it. So feel free to kind of use the link, join, pass it on to even your friends and families, right? Because this is not only going to be limited to only JY alum. The benefits can be passed on to your friends and family as well.
Right, thank you. So with that, I would just like to ask Dr. Sabine for her closing remarks, if anything, that is there that she wants to add.
So I think we were talking about wellness and how to reach them, especially after this 1 year of turmoil that we have gone through as people and as systems. And I think I have two words for you. So I, of course, agree with Prashant and his assessment of financial health and how that is important. I agree with Himanshu as well that things might get better on some fronts. Though I have a little bit of tweak there that we basically are talking about the 33% people who have internet connection and who actually use them that we are talking about, whose jobs have moved across. We're not talking about your workers. We are not talking about your industry sector or your real estate sector or your infrastructure sector people who have to be there for work every day. That sector will not work without them. So yeah, that is true, and I do agree with Vivek as well when he says that we have to start asking how. But I think I have two more words to conclude. One is balance. So in my personal life, in this last year, I've seen a lot of loss. I've seen a lot of travel. I've seen a lot of change in my work atmosphere. It had been around for some time, but this year was pretty crazy. And I have realized one thing, that only when you balance out all of these aspects, when you have a balance between everything from your financial health to your spiritual health, can you actually attain a state of whatever anyone personally concludes as wellness. Second thing is supply chains. I know it seems like a very different thing to talk about from wellness, but supply chains are some of the most undervalued areas of all industries, which were broken down during these areas. And because of that, we lost jobs, we lost industry, we lost everything, right, in the last 1 year. And I think a new appreciation to how that could be put together in every aspect, including in healthcare, and how those can be a new avenue to create employment as well as industry, I think would be a good area to start thinking about for systemic health and its betterment, I suppose. So yeah, thank you so much for that.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Sabine. So while you said that supply chain is something that might be a little off topic, but I don't think so, because people who are working in healthcare, they know how important it is and what the value is of supply chain. So that's a very nice aspect that you brought out. On that note, I would like to conclude. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this afternoon, this evening now. But I'm sorry that we had to, extend it by 15 minutes, but I think the conversation was worth the wait. And, so thank you so much for being patient.
Thanks, Pallavi, for hosting us so well. So thank you.
Yes, thanks. Thanks to the organizing team as well for, I think, taking all the pains to kind of put together, right? It's we are like the front end, but there's a lot of back end that really goes into organizing something like this.
Yeah, Himanshu, and also managing my schedule. So thank you guys, and managing all my requests. So thank you, the team.
Right. So I'll just take a quick minute to introduce and thank the team that has organized this session. Thank you, Ishani, Aru, Astha, Pulkit for putting this together. Harshi, who is also part of the organizing team. So thanks to her as well. Right. These are all the email IDs in case somebody wants to reach out to the panelists. And I'm sure that's going to happen because that's how the JY community is. And the purpose of the session is to build, kind of relations.
Yeah.
And I would also like to announce that the next session is going to be on tourism. So hopefully we'll see you all for that. That's all for this session. Thank you so much for joining.